What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. We got so much to talk about here going on right now. It's unbelievable here. Hopefully, you caught my previous video right before this about the Medicare Part B premiums that are going to actually decrease for the first time in a decade, which is amazing because with inflation right now off the chart, we have 40 plus year high inflation. That is an absolutely amazing announcement to think that they're not going to go over $200 a month. They're actually going to go down. And we're going to see the largest Social Security increase in decades, and that Medicare Part B is going to go down. That's a really, really good announcement. So I'll link you to that video here at the end of this. You got to watch that. But there's so much to talk about here. Let's jump right in. Yeah, we're very, very close to a government shutdown, which would happen at the end of the day on September 30th if Congress can't come to an agreement and pass it in the House and the Senate. And there's a lot of moving pieces which need to happen and get passed here. And you can see here, Congress moves closer to funding the government after Manchin drops part of his plan following GOP Republican backlash, even though this is something that Republicans have wanted for a while, and that's to pass permitting reform to help the oil and gas industry pass permitting so that it could potentially lead to lower gas prices. The Republicans are just kind of mad in general because of the previous legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act that passed, and Joe Manchin's kind of caught in the middle here once again. Yeah, you can see here Senate Democrats have released a short-term government funding bill, but there's a lot of complications on this, and a lot needs to be done here in a very short amount of time to actually get the deal done. And Republicans and Democrats have to both agree to it for all this to happen. So, Senate Democrats today here cleared the way for a vote to at least take place after Senator Joe Manchin dropped his request to include this in the stopgap bill, at least maybe partially, after a controversial proposal on permitting reform that had come up under sharp criticism from Republicans and liberals as well. The vote had been on the verge of failing due to the inclusion of the measure, but now will likely have the support needed for the funding bill to move forward. Senators released the legislative text of the stopgap funding bill overnight, which will only fund the government temporarily, a measure that would fund the government through December 16th. In addition to the money, the government agencies to keep the government afloat, it provides around $12 billion for Ukraine as it continues to face Russian military attack. Both Republicans and Democrats have to approve this and for this to go through as well, and would require the Pentagon to report on how U.S. dollars have been spent there. The aid to Ukraine is a bipartisan priority. This comes as you can see the headlines here. U.S. faces bleak options as Putin turns bellicose on nuclear war. Here is Ukrainian President Zelensky. Here's what he has to say. Check this out.
Therefore, sanctions against the aggressor are part of the peace formula. Blocking the trade and relations with the aggressor is a part of the peace formula. All this is a punishment. So long as the aggressor is a party to decision-making in the international organization, he must be isolated from them, at least until aggression lasts. Reject the right to vote. Deprive delegation rights. Remove the right of veto if it is a member of the UN Security Council, in order to punish the aggressor within the institutions.
So President Zelensky is asking for Russia to be removed from the UN, at least temporarily, because of the war here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. U.S. officials are walking a careful line in response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's latest suggestion that he may be willing to resort to nuclear weapons. Following Putin's thinly veiled reference to nuclear options in remarks last week, the Biden administration officials have said they're taking the comments seriously while trying to avoid escalating the situation with more bellicose rhetoric. The Kremlin's announcement, which also detailed aggressive new steps to try and turn the tide of the war in Ukraine back in Moscow's favor, has U.S. officials caught between a bleak set of options with Putin's nuclear saber rattling. Quote, "We have communicated to the Russians what the consequences would be, but we've been careful in how we talk about this publicly. From our perspective, we want to lay down the principle that there would be catastrophic consequences, but not engage in a game of rhetoric tit for tat," said White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Putin last week said that Moscow was prepared to use nuclear weapons to defend any of its territory, accusing the US and its allies of nuclear blackmail and moving to destroy his country. Putin claimed in a nationally televised address, quote, "I want to remind you that our country also has various means of destruction, and some components are more modern than those of NATO countries." And with this announcement, the U.S. is mobilizing allies to reject the Russian annexation effort amid nuclear threats. Right now, the vote is ending here in Ukraine, where Russia is basically officiating the vote on whether or not the eastern part of Ukraine should become part of Russia. And of course, Russia is officiating it, and Russia is basically controlling the voting here. You can see here, and many times underneath military officials holding guns. The US and its allies are mobilizing the international community to reject Russian attempts to annex territory in Ukraine, in a move that Kyiv hopes will spur greater military support to deliver Moscow a decisive battlefield defeat. Hawkish supporters of Ukraine say now is the time for the US, Europe, and NATO to increase the delivery of heavy artillery, tanks, and warplanes to Kyiv, despite nuclear weapons threats by Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that Putin just ordered 300,000 more troops via draft. Also, there is a quote mysterious leak in a major natural gas pipeline that has been damaged. The Nord Stream pipeline is erupting like geysers in the Baltic Sea. Danish military video shows. You can see how massive this is. And you can imagine the environmental impact here of how traumatic and how bad this is going to be. With imagine how much oil is erupting out of the sea here to create this type of impact here, and how bad this is going to be. And the largest disturbance of the surface is spread across more than 1,000 meters, while the smallest is about 200 meters. And the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 systems were designed to transport natural gas from Russia to Europe. An explosion measuring 2.3 on the Richter scale was detected in the area at 7:04 p.m. local time on Monday, and the Kremlin said it couldn't rule out sabotage, per Reuters said. So there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of moving pieces. Ukraine just received the U.S. air defense system, the HIMARS, which may help at least somewhat from the U.S. in case that there is a nuclear defense type of situation. God, we hope that it doesn't come to that. But again, if Russia has 6,000 nuclear bombs, and if they start shooting one, would be the worst of the worst type of scenario. Russia's former president Dmitry Medvedev, and he's now the Russia's Security Council, says that nuclear threats are not a bluff and that NATO won't step in if Russia uses nukes on Ukraine. So this is what Russia is saying right now, and this is the type of escalation that we're at this point right now. Remember that this was the type of escalation that Russia was saying that before the war. Remember, many people were saying, oh, the war will never happen. The war will never happen. That 100,000 plus troops that were on the border, they're just there and the war is not going to happen. And then look what happened. Now we're 6+ months into the war. God only hopes that this type of stuff won't happen, but this is what Russia is saying right now. Putin's saying it. Their number two in charge, their former president, saying it. He's their Security Council chief, is saying it. So, Russia's just they're just a complete loose cannon. So let's hope that this does not happen, because it's some scary stuff here. These are the headlines here, just all across everywhere. And they're saying this publicly. They're saying this publicly. So, on some good news here, the US dollar hits a 20-year high as data supports the aggressive Fed moves of raising interest rates. So, our US dollar has actually hit a massive, massive high here against other currencies around the world. You can see the US dollar chart here versus, say, the euro. Here's a 1-year chart. You can see absolutely astonishing here. Unbelievable. So a dollar is worth more than a euro right now. And the last time that happened was like never. Here's a 5-year chart. Unbelievable the amount of growth that the US dollar has had. The euro has, as far as I can remember, always been more than the dollar. So believe it or not, the US dollar has had a tremendous, tremendous growth here. And in fact, here it is versus the pound, the UK pound. Again, the US dollar just skyrocketing. And the UK pound has actually been plummeting here. You can see here the UK pound tanking, massive tax cuts, and talks of emergency tax hikes going on. Here's what's going on in the UK. They're actually going on under a new, like, kind of regime change, a new presidency type of change here. The British pound just plummeted. What it means for UK and tourists, their currency is basically plummeting, where the US dollar is strengthening. So it shows a sign of strength here for the US. And again, it's just the type of stuff you really don't kind of hear nobody talking about. But it's actually a really good thing here for the US right now. And again, this is why I kind of try to show you guys these things. But yeah, versus like the UK pound or the euro, which is pretty much probably the two most, you know, compared to things that you would talk about. So yeah, the US dollar doing absolutely amazing here at 20-year highs versus other currencies around the world. So when we look at versus the UK pound versus the euro versus pretty much all other currencies in the world, the US dollar doing phenomenally, doing phenomenally. I know it might seem kind of weird with inflation and everything else going on, but that's why I like to show you guys this stuff here. right here on the screen so you can see it. But I want to show you guys one more thing here as well. Something truly, again, remarkable. Like I said, there's a lot going on here. I got more stuff here even for you guys in tomorrow's video as well. But in today's episode of You Can't Make This Stuff Up, take a look at this. So last night, and this is real, this actually happened. NASA, quote, "We have impact. A NASA spacecraft successfully crashed into an asteroid in a defense test." So you think about something that, like, you've ever watched movies, like Deep Impact or Armageddon, or any of those type of movies. There's a couple different ones. Well, they actually did this. Okay. And this is kind of important because you never really know if this is going to happen. And one of the theories is that this is how dinosaurs became extinct. They found some massive, massive craters in the world and think that maybe this is how dinosaurs went extinct. So this actually happened. This actually happened. A $325 million mission was the first attempt to shift the position of an asteroid or any other natural object in space in case we have an asteroid that comes towards the world and is large enough that could potentially incinerate us or something. So here's what happened, okay? This is an actual image here of what happened. So check this out. These are actual images or actual video. I think this is still images over and over and over here of the asteroid impact being transmitted right before the last impact. Yeah, so that actually happened. Yeah, here's what happened. The DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, has proven one thing. We have the capability to slam a spacecraft at high speed into a Great Pyramid-sized rock that's about 7 million miles from Earth. In the process, we got some excellent images of the jumble of rocks that make up the surface of the Dimorphos, as well as some taken of the larger asteroid Didymos on the way past. They actually had another camera behind it that took pictures. It could take days or weeks to learn how much the collision changed the orbit. So the mission wasn't to destroy the asteroid, it was too big, but to change the orbit of it so that, in theory, if this happens and an asteroid is coming right towards Earth, they could change the orbit of it. So in future things, what would take effect is it would redirect future threats and it wouldn't hit Earth. Scientists became confident an asteroid would be responsible for Earth's last mass extinction event. An obvious question has been, how can we avoid a repeat in the future? In reality, we are unlikely to face such a threat as one represented in films like Deep Impact or Armageddon, or Don't Look Up anytime soon. But if it happened in the past, it could happen again in the future. However, encounters with smaller rocks are much more common and could easily kill millions. DART is about establishing planetary defenses against such dangers. In the meantime, the footage it sent back gave us all a taste of what it is like to head for a lump of rock at 6.6 kilometers, 4 miles per second, in a vehicle the size of a small car. So again, here is what the footage looks like of a vehicle the size of a small car heading toward, you can see there's two rocks there, and they're headed right towards it. Just imagine the type of science that it takes to be able to do this and actually hit it at the speeds that they're going. And look at the rock there. What an amazing accomplishment to be able to do that. And of course, it's unmanned, so you have to do this all remotely. And it was traveling 4 miles per second. Unbelievable. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here. It's amazing what happens on Earth or even sometimes off Earth. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll keep you up to date here. You can click here to see my newest video of a brand new announcement here for people on Medicare and seniors and millions of Americans. It was actually a really good announcement, especially with inflation here. And here's my newest video about checks that are going to be going out here on October 7th for millions of Americans as well. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.